So I thought we had a really lively discussion on Saturday about patience, and I just feel like there was more to say about it, and we hadn't quite finished with it. So I wanted to just talk about some additional benefits of cultivating patience and some additional challenges of um, of this of this particular perfection or parami that the Buddha taught. And an important benefit which we touched on Saturday is that when we cultivate patience, it really cuts through our tendency toward arrogance, toward ingratitude, toward entitlement. It really sort of loosens the grip of the ego. I mean, patience is a wonderful antidote to all the manifestations of the ego. When we're caught up in our ego, we sort of think we're the center of the universe. We become impatient when the world gets in our way, when the world doesn't sort of comply with our agenda. We've all been there. In patience, when we cultivate it, it's such a wonderful quality, and I guess I just feel so personally strong about this because it's been such a challenge in my life. But it helps us cultivate humility, and that's a characteristic that moves us from resistance. When we're caught up in the ego, we're really resistant to acceptance. We're really resistant to spontaneous presence. And when we cultivate patience and the humility that comes with it, we relax. We kind of let go. Our suffering diminishes. I mean, we can measure it, we can feel it, we can see it. When I let go of this ego stuff, I can just feel myself relax. I can feel my suffering, my agitation start to lessen. But when we hold on to judgments about others, when we hold on to judgments about ourselves, it's a significant cause of impatience. It can be. Why aren't you doing this right? Why aren't you doing that this way? Why don't you do it like I told you? Whatever. We can just feel the impatience growing in us. But when we accept both all aspects of life, the pleasant and the unpleasant, including especially the behavior of those to whom we are close, that's when we cultivate patience. We cease wishing for life and especially others to be different than they are. We become free of the demands that we constantly put on ourselves that generate impatience. We become free of the demands that um, where the feelings of patience are dominant, impatience rather. And we wake up to all of life on its terms, not our terms. Okay. It's like it's not going to be the way I need it to be or want it to be. Now, we didn't touch so much on this Saturday, but let's be clear not to confuse patience with passivity, with reticence, with procrastination. Those are all qualities of resistance, avoidance, low energy. That's not patience, as I said on Saturday. Patience is an active process. It's an active process. It is intentional, it's purposeful, and it involves a tremendous amount of discernment that we talked about that on Saturday. We have to set an intention to cultivate it. We have to set an intention. It requires an effort. It requires a robust long-term commitment. We set the intention. I'm going to practice patience today. When I get frustrated, when I bump into things that seem to get in my way or interfere with my ego's needs, I'm going to try to step back and cultivate patience. Now, it's not a quick fix, but we do see benefits along the way. It's an incremental process. The ongoing work results in less suffering as we cultivate it, even though our efforts are never fully done. We're never 100% there. We in the West, especially in America, we want instant transformation. We want instant gratification. We are culturally impatient. Everything is hurry up, do it yesterday. And when that doesn't happen, we're culturally impatient. Okay, we see it all around us. We see it in how people drive. We see it, as I said the other day, how people act when they stand in the line at grocery store. We see it in our media. We see it everywhere. We want to know instant. We want instant news. We want everything instantly done. So these methods of cultivating patience are incremental and they're cumulative. They're cumulative. We build this practice, but it requires an ongoing commitment. We also have to have patience about our practice. It's slow, it's incremental, it takes time. There's no quick fix with the Dharma. The inclination for too many people, and I've seen this repeatedly over the years, is to abandon the practice because it's not giving them quick results. I used to see this with people that would come into therapy. Oh, 5 sessions, I'm not better. I'm out of here. You haven't fixed me. What's wrong? It's change takes time. But the rewards of reduced suffering and greater freedom from cultivating patient, I would argue, are well worth the effort. But we have to work at it and we have to pursue it with intention. It will not fall into our laps. The practical Dharma that we talk about, it's not passive practices where transformation happens just because we talk about it or we do our meditation every day. We have to implement the specific tools of patients, and we'll talk about those again in a minute, that result in change. Okay. So let's just review quickly the enemies of patience, the sources of our impatience. Okay. Here we go again, the ego. Okay, that's where it all begins. Arrogance, a sense of entitlement, which are both born of our ego needs, are attitudes in which a lack of patience is embedded. Okay. Now, it's not the same as anger, but anger and impatience are very close cousins. Okay. Because impatience is a typical response when we're frustrated or thwarted, and anger follows right on the heels of it. I'm impatient, I'm annoyed, I'm angry, I'm irritated. All of that is a part of a whole. This hurry up sickness from which most of us suffer, and this sense of urgency that is so pervasive in our culture, is ripe ground for impatience. Okay. But who suffers when we're impatient? Yes, the other person that we're frustrated with suffers because we're irritable and we're grumpy and we're demanding. But primarily we suffer. We suffer from it. Can we use that suffering as a red flag as a teacher to remind us when we experience impatience to shift gears, okay? To remind us to address that attitude skillfully with the tools that we have available. The Buddha offered us amazing tools, which we talk about here, to counter this frustration and this impatience. Last week, we talked about equanimity, one of the 4 Brahma Viharas. It's a wonderful antidote to the anger that helps, and equanimity helps us cultivate patience. And with every aspect of our practice, we begin by noticing it. Oh, here comes impatience, or I'm caught in impatience, or my body's telling me I'm irritated and tight and contracted because I'm impatient. Okay, we notice it, we pause, we tune into those bodily reactions that are sending us signals. And once we become aware that it's arising, where it's in the body, okay, then we have something to work with. I can make a choice then, using my discernment, to go a more skillful route. I come to a fork in the road. I can continue with impatience and irritation and all the suffering, or I can say, whoa, wait a minute. I have no control of this situation. I'm just going to let it go. We can become aware when it arises, and we can become aware of all the accompanying thought processes, most of which are ego based. Why aren't they hurrying? Don't they know I'm in a hurry? Don't they know how important I am? Whatever. These things are predictable. They're idiosyncratic to each of us. Each of us has a script that we engage in, a narrative, when we're impatient. Yours may be slightly different than mine, but if you pay attention, you'll become very familiar with your individual script and narrative. I have a very predictable script when I'm impatient. When I'm thwarted, there's a whole sequence that I've been practicing for many, sad to say, many years. But once we've done this, we've noticed, we've paused, we've decided to take the different fork in the road. We're now well on the way to managing our impatience more skillfully. Once we notice it and see clearly with insight and with discernment, we pause, we breathe, we let go. Okay. We recognize that we're holding on. We recognize that we're trying to control the uncontrollable, and we let it go. We give ourselves a conscious directive to accept and let go, to what we're holding on to that is feeding our impatience. And all the tools of our practice, all the steps of the Eightfold Path, either directly or indirectly, impact the cultivation of patience. Remember, when the Buddha gave us the 10 paramis, the 10 perfections, the 10 virtues, patience was number one. He recognized that without patience, the rest of our practice is just going to get gummed up. It's just going to throw a wrench into the machine because it is that important. It's that fundamental. When I am patient, I'm happy. I'm more at peace. When we practice and cultivate it, it reduces our suffering in a significant way. It really, really does. If I go through a day with cultivating patience, it's just so much easier than gnashing my teeth, grumbling, bitching and moaning about everything that gets in my way. I mean, it is such a source of suffering. Not massive suffering, but enough suffering that, I don't want it if I can avoid it. Okay, so that's the rest of my thoughts on patience. Let's talk about it some more because I think it's really, really fundamental and important.
Jeff,
Jeff,